thought there was something.
No.
I didn't realize it was time. Yeah. Ready? We will call this meeting of the Jamestown City Council work session to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Sheldon.
Here.
Brackman.
Here.
Paternity.
Here.
Reynolds.
Present.
Faulkner.
Here.
Bonfiglio.
Here.
Diversa.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
President Schultz.
Here, thank you. This time we'll give opportunities for people to address the council. Anyone here that'd like to address the council, please leave your name and address and limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Address the council, anybody? Somebody else? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to committee reports. Start with housing, Billy.
Thank you, Mr. President. No one from the public came to the committee meeting. Everybody was there from the committee. And I've handed out a letter that came from Senator Barillo's office, who summarized a visit by one of my constituents. And I've given everybody a copy of it. It's a lot of it's redo, a lot of it's old information or old complaints that are ongoing. And I just thought I'd share that with you so that if we ever had an opportunity to let our legislative officials know how serious and how far reaching some of these problems are going, that we could maybe join in with her and maybe individually or as a whole council to send a letter again to Holco on down for some of the state issues. So that's there for your reading and enjoyment, and we'll hopefully have some feedback in other ways as we go forward. Regina brought up the...
Bill?
Yeah.
There's one correction on this letter.
Okay.
State elected need to talk with Joe from the Jamestown Police Department. That's Joe from my office. Kathy has been in multiple times
Yeah,
to
she,
visit with him.
you
It's
told
not
me
the police
that,
department.
that,
But I'm aware.
yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out what J-O-E, what...
Right.
Unless he's a cop now.
No.
Show us your badge. No. Thank you for pointing that out, but she's worked very hard, as a matter of fact, over maybe as long as 2 years trying to create an awareness citywide, so kudos to her for, again, reaching out to everybody. Regina brought up some homeless activity, that folks are already starting to set up camps, and we talked about the landlord-tenant issues, where we're working on trying to get landlords and tenants to be responsible for their properties, and it's an ongoing thing also. There's a property on 11th Street that Crystal qualified it as an heirs property, and it's a difficult property to work with because I don't know if it's in probate or if there's no descendants to handle the property, but that's a situation that's familiar to Crystal and her department. Land bank owned properties came up, not only through the tax auction that Auctions International is having, but Land Bank owns quite a few properties in the city, and they're handling their own violations, so to speak, primarily high grass and upkeep around the properties. Joe mentioned 2 houses on Pershing that one's in probate, which doesn't allow the city or the Department of Development to do much until it's out of probate, and the other's gone through the tax auction, and that ended August, I believe, 29th, and it will be a while before we find out who may have bought it and who the new owners are. And Crystal brought a point that I was unaware of. Every time a property changes hands via an auction, whether it's a tax auction or just a sale, that these they have to start their cases all over. They start brand new with ownership change, so it sets them back a few months from all the work that they've done on a previous owner. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I heard her say that there's about 1,000 cases ongoing with only 4 code officers, and many of the cases should be foiled because of the privacy nature of some of them. And we've got a list of demos in queue. with contractors changing over from concrete to blacktop. Hopefully there'll be a number of contractors that will assist in some demolition on a lot of these properties. And Crystal passed out a project commitment log showing some of the status of a number of properties. Thank you for doing that, Crystal. So we have an updated list. Fulton Street, there's been some awards given and some others in queue. So hopefully by year end, there'll be some demolitions that come down. Quality of life tickets, that new program we started, the code officers are in fact using them, and some fines have been collected and some actions some good action, I should say, has been a result of these, the new ticketing. The new registration process for rental properties is coming more and more online with success in identifying who some of these LLCs are and corporations and the like. So, and then lastly, we talked about the communication between her department and the police department, sharing information. A lot of the cases that get referred to Crystal end up being referred to the police department, and there's ways for both departments to communicate with each other in seeing the results of a collaborative effort. And if I'm not missing anything, that was it for housing. Crystal?
I just had a quick question. So if a house ends up going to the auction and there's multiple violations that you've worked on that are attached to that house, someone comes in and buys that house, those violations don't go with the house, you're starting from scratch.
We have to open a new case, so we have to close the old case and open a new case. We weren't able to share the existing violations, with the auction house and condemnation, so those are all attached. The new owners will get copies of all of that, but we have to start our prosecution of those violations over again.
Because it's a new owner. And you and I did have a conversation briefly about some of the sale of these homes, that there are, I'm gonna say it, there are predators that are purchasing these homes, and these predators, housing predators, might have multiple LLCs, have multiple open cases with even code violations on the existing houses that they own, and also possibly have back taxes that are due on these houses, but yet through weak legislation or legislation that needs to be passed on a county and a state level, these housing predators are still able to go in under the ruse of multiple LLCs and purchase more homes, even though they're neglectful on the ones that they own.
Yep.
That's correct. All right.
Yep.
Can't we refuse if we know we
We
can't
can't.
refuse the sale? We
It's
can't
not,
say-
it's not up to us, it's to the county, real property tax office.
Can they refuse it if they're aware of this person's neglect of housing?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that. That would probably be a better question for Elliot.
Okay,
I believe that they could, but I think that there are also, people have the right to buy property, and if they purchase it under a different LLC, the county really doesn't have the ability to refuse that
it just doesn't make sense to, because it's a domino effect.
either.
that-
Doesn't make
that-
sense to me either.
I know, it's these laws, but I wish they would look into it more, the county, but maybe I can talk to someone.
Crystal, also, you mentioned that before you could reissue a violation, it has to be reported as well, correct?
Yeah, we have to.
So
get it
unless
to complaint.
somebody reports a code violation, that house might go undetected for a while.
Yeah, it might.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that we don't know those violations still exist, just to be clear on that. And we do have a strategy that we've been working on for trying to get more violations and more property owners, whether it's one property owner that owns 16 different LLCs, to try to be more efficient in the way that we're pursuing prosecution of code violations. So, you know, just because we have to start over with a case, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're not going to fall off our radar as far as knowing that they still exist. These properties that have gone to auction have probably gone to many auctions, and it's not unlikely that the same owner didn't just rebuy it at this auction. that does happen. So we try to keep track of that as much as possible.
So to,
How could they repurchase it under a different?
LLC,
Different LLC?
name,
so
spouse name.
to stop that type of practice, you stated that not only would there have to be legislation passed on the county level, but obviously we're gonna have to elicit some assistance and some laws being changed on the state level as well.
Yep.
Anything else for housing?
Nope, that was it, thank you.
Thank you. Move on to finance, Brent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 4 resolutions. The first, County of Chautauqua, the DA's Office applied for state funding under the New York State Discovery Grant Program for 2025. And an approved portion of those grant funds must be shared with the City of Jamestown Police Department in the amount of $20,000. This will help the Detective Bureau's evidence unit. That was passed. And next is the City of Jamestown applied for state funding under New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee Police Traffic Services Program for 2025 and 2026. This is for enhanced police traffic services enforcement and enhanced seatbelt enforcement. And the amount of $680.00. That is approved. Next is suspending the hiring freeze and hiring 8 new on-call matron positions in the Jamestown Police Department for the jail. Apparently there was an inspection by a state inspector who brought up that the state is requiring this and we must follow suit. Spoke to the police chief and he said that it's really hard to gauge how often these women will be called in to work in the jails, but I believe it's mostly be second shift and or night shift. There's nothing in the budget at this point. I assume it's coming out of contingency and will be budgeted for next year. That was approved. And finally, resolved with the mayor and Director of Public Safety about the residential agreement with the City of Jamestown School District for providing 2 school resource officers in Jamestown Public Schools for a term of 1 year beginning September 1st, 2025, ending August 31st, 2026, subject to approval of Corporation Council's form. This is every year. And the school pays for these resource officers. And that was approved. Had no other reports. That was all we had.
Chief, is there any changes in the contract for the research officers?
The only change was that we could pull the middle school resource officer from manpower at a certain level with a 30 days notice. That was the only major change.
and obviously
Yeah, I'm gonna the increase in the wages, but, okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Jen looked at the MOU and we believe it was for a 10-month contract rather than 1 year.
I have a note to fix, the resolution's incorrect. It gives a 12-year, or 12-month period.
It'll be 10 more.
The MOU's correct, it's
Yeah, it is.
just the resolution.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on to public safety. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. President. We had the same resolutions that Finance had. The first one was to the acceptance of the $20,000 provided by the state of New York for the State Discovery Grant Program. That passed. The second one also on Finance was the funds of $8,680 for the Police Traffic Services Program for the period of 1 year. That passed. The third resolution, also on finance, was to suspend the hiring freeze and the hiring of the 8 on-call matron positions in the Jamestown Police Department. I just kind of wanted to talk about that just for a second. We did talk about it in public safety. Mr. DeVersa wasn't quite sure what matrons are. Matrons, they're not police officers, they're civilian employees. There'll be females that'll be employed by the city and the police department. And when a female comes in, is under arrest and is incarcerated in there, there'll be a matron called on a call-in list, and that female matron will be back there basically and looking over, watching, and responsible for that female person back there, obviously, but still under the supervision of the uniformed officer that's working back there. Just a quick question for the chief, was it the Department of Corrections that came and did the inspection of the jail? And that's a regular occurrence, that's,
Yes, every 2 years.
so they come in and they do that, it's not, my only concern is, you know, this is kind of an unfunded mandate by the state. We don't have it in our budget right now. The other thing that's odd, and I always found this odd, is so you can have a male police officer back in the jail, and a female will be arrested on the street, and they'll be brought into jail. And the male officer is not allowed to put a female prisoner back in a female cell, despite the jail being full audio and video 24/7. So the Department of Corrections says that that male officer is not allowed to put a female back in a cell. I think at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, they're not even allowed to put them into the holding tank? Is that what the Department of Corrections is saying?
That's correct.
Okay, and the
Unless
holding,
Unless the matron or female police officer is present.
and the holding tank is right out in the booking area. And like I said, even the female cell block in the back is all audio and video. But if you put a female uniformed police officer in there and they get a male prisoner that comes in, the female police officer pretty much can fully do her job back in the jail. She can place a male prisoner into a cell. She can walk back and do her jail checks. She's able to see the male prisoner on a screen in the jail still, correct? So the female police officer is able to see the male prisoner using the bathroom in a cell, because there's a camera that points right in the cell. So the female officer, it's very odd to me that New York State has a problem with a male officer even putting a female into an open cell with audio and video, but the state of New York Department of Corrections has no problem with a female officer having full responsibility back in the jail. Has anyone ever said through Department of Corrections why that is?
I had not inquired, but that's what they have in writing right in front of me.
Sure. It's just very odd to me that,
Did something happen to cause this?
I'm sure that over the years, something has happened that
Still isn't.
they created that.
basically the Department of Corrections says that nothing can happen with a female officer, but something can happen with a male officer. So, kind of odd. All right. I carry on. So that passed through public safety for these matrons. And the last one was for the school resource officers, and we did amend that on our resolution for September 1st through June of the end of June of 2026. And the last thing we had was a block party. It's actually a wedding that's occurring on Pine Street between 2nd and 3rd. It's going to be closed off October 11th, 2025 from 2 p.m. until 11 p.m. and that passed. That's it.
Any questions? Move on, Public Works, Andy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. We did not have any pre-filed resolutions for our committee, and the public did not attend our committee meeting. The couple of things we did discuss was there's been a request for Bradmar Circle housing units up there. The people would like a crosswalk from Jefferson School to safely, or mostly safely, to cross into the apartment dwellings. So Mark and the committee has looked into this, and it is possible and feasible to do it, and they're going to look to see one side of the curbing needs to be busted out on the Bradmar Circle side. And Mark is going to get a quote on what that possibly would cost. Even though it's a county road, the county will let us put a crosswalk in there, so we are actively exploring that. The other thing is, the other point of discussion, when I mentioned earlier that Foot Avenue is being started milling, and tomorrow I take it, right, Mark? You said tomorrow? Yeah. They've been up there doing some drop inlet work down near the city line. We believe they did some plastic coating of the culverts underneath that were bad. But you might have seen that happening. But they are going to start milling it, and anything the city needs to do with some of the drop inlets, we're going to get done, and they'll be on their way paving that project. So we can expect to see that happening up there in the next couple of weeks. And that's all we had in committee.
I have a question, Mark. When do you guys anticipate Second Street getting redone by the state next year, seeing that they did the temp work?
So the contract is still in process at New York State, as far as I know. They'll have Catco won that bid. That's the same company that did Washington Street a couple years ago. So then it'll just be sort of on their schedule. So sometime next year, hopefully,
Okay.
around this time, the street will be done.
Another question regarding that, with the little bit of rain that we have had, I've noticed, because I travel that every day, 6 days a week, with the little bit of rain, there is some pooling on the seams, which I see as being a potential problem once the freezing and winter starts. So is there any thing that the city might be doing to put a seal bead on it?
So that, it is a temporary patch.
Right.
So hopefully it only has to make it through one winter.
Right.
We will not be doing, so once that road is under contract, it will be the contractor's responsibility to maintain it. So we'll still do the plowing and salting and that kind of
Right.
stuff. But if potholes or anything develops, it'll be on the contractor to take care of those.
Thanks.
As far as the crosswalk, it might be a little premature on this, but I mean, is there any kind of lighting involved in that? Any of the flashing lights?
Not as a
signage or
as
anything
yet,
like that?
right, Mark?
We haven't looked at that.
Okay.
No.
Alright.
Not
I mean,
as-
those flashing lights, they cost around $5,000 a piece. So I can include that in any estimate, that's what we want.
Would that be solar powered, do you think, or
The ones that
electric?
we put up a few of them around the city in conjunction with, we did one by Purcell School, I believe, and then one, I can't remember where the other one is now, with the hospital
it may be a good thing to look into.
Right? Good? All right, we'll move on to mayor's reports.
I really don't have anything at this point in time. Shocker.
Nothing? Executive?
No, nothing for executive.
Oh, boy.
Budget is in process. Erica is out for a family death, but she's met with a lot of the department heads. She's got some lining up to do for the first pass, and then we'll go from there. So, we're on target for timing, let's put it that way.
Target. Okay. Anything else to come forth? Just a reminder, next week we do not have a work session, it'll be 2 weeks, so it'll be on the 22nd, and then voting session's the 29th. Next week, we have 5. There are 5 Mondays in September.